Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking Impact Wrestling, and we are live on the Mike and JD YouTube channel, and we're also going to be on Patreon as well. So if you're listening to this on Patreon, thank you for being a subscriber. I really appreciate you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, actually, I doubt that you are because it's 9 p.m. in Honolulu, which, if you're keeping score, that's midnight on the West Coast, and that would be 3 a.m. on 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 the East Coast. So if you are watching with me, and I see that there are 0 eyeballs, which was by design because I was like, I'm just gonna go live. That way, I don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. Tomorrow morning and upload everything and get all the thumbnails ready. I just did it all right now. I was just like, I just want to get it done and make sure that I have it all ready to go, that I could sleep in tomorrow. Because a lot of times, whenever I record these Brace for Impact shows on the weekend, I'm just doing it at like 4:30 and 5 in the morning. So I was like, you know what? It's 9 p.m. My family is asleep, so I will go ahead and just take care of it right now. But man, I'm pretty excited to be doing another Brace for Impact. The last one that I did was when Alex Shelley. No, actually, it was a Slammiversary recap. Actually, that wasn't even a Brace for Impact. That was just an Impact Lounge with BQ, with my buddy BQ on his YouTube channel. So the previous one was over on the Fight Game Media Network, where we used to work. And Alex Shelley had defeated Steve Macklin, and despite the fact that I really love Alex Shelley, I was pretty disappointed in that. But Alex has turned out to be a great champion. It ended up working out because Steve got hurt, I think, like a month later in Australia, and we'll have some news on him here in a little bit. But since the last episode that I did of Brace for Impact, which was been a couple of months ago, like I said, I think it was in June. Um, Impact has really been on a roll. Ratings are up. At one point, they were like up over 155,000 viewers for their East Coast feed, their main feed, and typically they do about like 30% on the West Coast feed. So, pretty decent numbers. They've been selling out shows not only all over the country, but they sold out. They did two shows in Australia, one of which was a sellout. They did probably their biggest gate that they've done since Anthem has owned the company, and for Slammiversary in Windsor, which I think they said they had well over 1,000 people there for the Slammiversary show. And then they had like 800 to 1,000 people the next night for the Impact tapings. And as Dave Meltzer had reported that they did over like 4,000 pay-per-view buys for that just on television alone, and if you triple that, the streaming numbers typically triple. You're looking at, I can't remember the exact number he said were TV buys, but it was like over 4,000. So I think somebody did like an estimate is like in between 17 and 18,000 pay-per-view buys, which would have been right up there with what they did whenever Kenny Omega was the champion, whenever he defended the title against or when he defeated Rich Swann for the Impact Championship, when he defended the AEW title. And then that beat several of the Bischoff Hogan era TNA pay-per-views when their pay-per-view business continued to die because they decided that they only wanted to focus on the Impact TV show, and they essentially just killed off their pay-per-view business. So, I gotta say, Impact is really coming on strong. The 2022, as far as the television goes, the TV show, and then all of the premium live events and pay-per-views, I felt was, since I've been a fan since I'm not gonna count TNA. I'm just gonna count Impact because I thought TNA had some really good years too, as far as television goes and their pay-per-views. But as far as the Impact, since Anthem has taken over, it was by far their best year for television. And then earlier this year, they kind of had a run of some, what in my opinion, some really bad shows. And Josh Alexander ended up getting hurt. Mickey James ended up getting hurt. Bully Ray kind of became a more of a fixture on the television show, and Scott D'Amore had become more of a fixture on the television show. And I thought that the show had been kind of sinking a little bit, but I would say since Rebellion, um, the show has gotten to be really good. I enjoyed the Rebellion pay-per-view. I've enjoyed the PLEs since then. I enjoyed Slammiversary. I actually did not think that it was as good as Rebellion, but I still thought that it was pretty good. And I'm excited for Multiverse United coming up this Sunday, and I'll run down the card here in a little bit. I'm also excited for Emergence. We just had some breaking news, and that'll be the top story. Um, that Sonata, the IWGP champion, is going to be defending the IWGP title against Jake Something, who returned at Slammiversary. So Jake Something is back, and he is going to, look, we already know the outcome. We already know the outcome of that match. I don't think the outcome is all that important for this one specifically. I think this is going to be a good opportunity to showcase a young rising star in Jake Something. Jake is a guy that Impact sees something in, and it wasn't really intended to be a pun, but I think they see a lot in him, and I see a lot in him too. Like obviously promos would be a weakness, but guy's got a ton of charisma. He's, he looks like a freak. He can fly, he can wrestle, he can work with the little guys, he can work with the big guys. I think that he's somebody that you can, you could build a lot of this company around. He's somebody that you could focus on, and putting him there with the IWGP champion is going to be a good step. And now look, Sonata next to Evil is probably the weakest IWGP champion that we've had in a long time. But he's still a pretty good wrestler. He's not Okada good. He's not Tanahashi good. He's not Omega good, and those Osprey, but he's still pretty good. And I think that this will be a really good match, and it's going to be a good showcase for Jake Something. So I am excited. I'm excited for that. So this will be the first time the Sonata has wrestled in Impact / TNA since 2015. He was a former X Division champion. He feuded with Austin Aries and others over the title. In 2014 through early 2015, this will be his first meeting with Something, who recently returned to Impact at July's Slammiversary after leaving the company a little over a year ago. So that was from Josh Nason at the Wrestling Observer. But yeah, I'm super excited about it, and I think Emergence is going to be a big show. Multiverse is going to be a big show. Impact has just been killing it, and somebody asked me, it's like, somebody told me that they weren't really enjoying the episodes lately, and I gotta admit, I have been enjoying it probably more than a lot of people. But they said that they didn't really enjoy the episodes lately, but they noticed that the ratings were up, and ticket sales seem to be up everywhere they go. And then, of course, Slammiversary did so good on pay-per-view. And the question is, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I think that's the short answer is, I don't know, because I thought that last year was a much better year than this year. And maybe there's some type of residual effect, or maybe it's just that I'm out of touch. Maybe that the stuff that I like, maybe not everybody else likes, and the stuff that I don't really care for, maybe more people that like it than I do. I was early in the year, I was turned off by a lot of the Bully Ray stuff. It appears to be working, right? I think another person that we could probably, point towards is Trinity. Now, Trinity, I'll be honest, seems like a very nice person. She comes across as a star. She's got a great look. She's got a great entrance. When the bell rings, there's not much there. She appears to get lost a little bit in her matches. She botches some moves, and, she is okay. She's an okay wrestler, but, she's an endearing person. Like, she's somebody that you want to root for. And in this promotion, she comes across like she's the biggest star in the world, and they've done a great job of presenting her as such. That entrance is tremendous. The outfits are awesome. The glowing and the dancing and everything, and the crowd getting into it is just fantastic. The whole presentation works. I think that she is somebody that people are gravitating towards and getting behind. And I think she is also somebody that could be a major contributor to the success of Impact. I'll be honest, there's also another guy that I don't want to admit, but probably Scott D'Amore. But I think that the success of Windsor really lied on his shoulders. That he did a good job presenting that whole thing. PCO, he kind of comes and goes, but whenever he does, it's always a big moment. And I think that that's been helpful. At Slammiversary, they recently just got Josh Alexander back. Alex Shelley is a guy that people have been wanting to see as the world champion for a long time, and he's finally getting it. The Rascals are back, Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz. Zachary, who was, I think it was like Nash Bridges or something like that on Nash Carter. Nash Bridges. He was a Nash Carter on NXT. He has returned, and that's a really cool act. Subculture's a cool act. The ABC, that's a really cool act. They got a lot of things cooking in this promotion, and I think that the folks that maybe were judging what it is today based off of what they were seeing early in the year when they had lost a ton of people, because towards the end of the year a lot of those contracts expire, and then they kind of reshuffling the deck in the beginning of the year. And then of course your world heavyweight champion Josh Alexander and your women's champion Mickey James, they both get injured, and then they have to take an extended period of time off. Obviously, not helpful to the company, and so they kind of were in a little bit of a downward trend. But since April, they're on the way back up. This Thursday, actually, the ratings were down a little bit. It was 107, down from 128. I think that football being back could help. Attribute to that. The previous week, football was also back, but there was only one game. This past Thursday, there were several games on at the same time in several markets, and so I know that a lot of people are watching football. Me personally, I actually got a chance to watch Impact live this week, and that was a lot of fun. But Impact, man, I'm glad to be covering the show again. I didn't really miss any episodes. I watched all the PLEs. I just wasn't doing the podcast because we had made the switch over to the Mike and JD show. But now that we're doing this Patreon and now that we have this YouTube channel, I'm in charge. So I get to talk about whatever I want. And I'm bringing Brace for Impact back because I really like Impact. I like talking about it, and I like interacting with you, the audience, and talking about Impact. So let's go, man. Next up, I want to talk about Lacey Evans. So Lacey Evans, you're not really a former Marine. You're always a Marine, but she used to be in the Marine Corps. She is a WWE wrestler, and she had a lot of start and stop pushes in WWE. I think she was a favorite of Vince McMahon, and now that he's not gone, but he doesn't wield the same creative power that he once did, where at one point he was the end all be all and creative, but now seems like the power structure, even though he's still on top with Endeavor kind of taking over, and he had left last year amid all those allegations. He had come back to watch the sale, and then he was back in Gorilla. Well, he doesn't show up to all the events anymore, but he does have some say-so in creative, but he doesn't really rule it with an iron fist the same way that he used to. And when he used to, he was pretty adamant that Lacey Evans get a push, and everything that they tried to do with her just failed. And it almost seemed like there were certain forces that wanted it to fail. Now, I'm not saying that she would have been successful. I'm just saying that they didn't really do the lady any favors. Just a lot of start and stops, and they did this whole dramatic thing about her history in the military, and she's an assault survivor and all these things. And then they brought her back and turned her heel immediately. And we're just like, what are you doing? It's like it almost seemed like they were trying to get it to fail. And that makes no sense to me why you would set somebody up for failure like that. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't seen a ton of her in-ring work. I did see a lot of the vignettes because obviously me being a military guy, I tend to gravitate towards military folks and that are also part of my hobby. I tend to root for them to do well. And so I was absolutely rooting for her to do well. Despite the fact that, there's been some online stuff with her I don't get into all that nonsense, and I don't really care which way someone votes. I'm not going to not like their performances because they vote a certain way. That doesn't really matter to me. But, I thought that Lacey could have been something for them. Now, Meltzer earlier on in the week on Wrestling Observer Radio, he did say that Impact would probably take her, and I found that interesting. But I got to be honest, I don't see that one happening, not because Impact wouldn't take her. I think that they would try to give her a shot. I think that Lacey Evans, I think her name is Macy Estrella now, I just don't see her wrestling anymore. I talked about this on the Mike and JD show earlier this week, and I'll get into it now a little bit more. A lot of these NXT athletes that don't really work their way up through the indies, they go straight to NXT. They weren't really born wrestling fans. They don't really know much about it outside of a little bit that they see on television. They're more on the periphery, but they've been given an opportunity because of their look and their athleticism to become pro wrestlers and to make very good money and to become famous, right? And that's what a lot of these guys want, and a lot of these girls want, is they just kind of want to make some money and become famous. That's important to them. And Lacey's kind of one of those folks. She's a fitness model. She's got a great backstory. Obviously, being a Marine, she's a mom and she's a survivor, and that's cool. And she's very marketable, and I think that's what it was all about. I just don't see her out there hustling on the indies. I don't see her going from big stadiums and the bright lights of the WWE to Cicero Stadium in Chicago. Nothing against Cicero Stadium in Chicago, but there's a big difference between the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago and Cicero Stadium, right? You're talking about, 10 to 15,000 versus 500 to 1,500, right? Like there's a significant difference there. And I think there's probably a difference in money there too. I'm sure Impact would offer her a good deal. I know Trinity ain't coming over to Impact for cheap, right? So I just don't see the fit there. But again, crazier things have happened. I didn't really see Trinity going there. I didn't see that one, and it happened, and it's worked out really well. Obviously, like I said earlier, Trinity's probably a big part of the success that Impact's having right now, because she's absolutely coming off like a star. Next up, Steve Macklin. He hurt himself in a match with Alex Shelley over in Australia. They had a big show, two big shows in Australia. And the first night he had gotten hurt, he tore his groin. I actually watched it, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that was definitely a groin injury." And so I hope he ends up doing well. But he's going to be cleared to return. I don't know when. If he's a full go, I don't see why you wouldn't have him show up at Emergence next week. I don't know if you need him to show up at Multiverse United. There's a lot going on that show. But I would think that he would show up at Emergence, and I don't know the full card for Emergence yet, but I assume that Bully Ray and PCO is on that card. And if you remember, if you follow Bully Ray on Twitter, I don't know why you would, but if you did, you would have caught this. When Steve Macklin got injured prior to Slammiversary and he was looking for a new tag team partner, he had stated that Macklin was soft and this and that. He needed to find a real partner, and he ended up choosing Diener. I think that was for a reason, because they knew he'd be back. And I think the plan was always to have Bully Ray versus Steve Macklin at Bound for Glory this coming up year. So I think that you have him go to Emergence, and after his match, the PCO show up, and you kickstart that feud right there. I think that's cool. I think that's how you do that. Somebody else slated to return here pretty soon is Brother Devon. Team 3D, Bully Ray and Brother Devon, they are going to be reuniting at Impact 1000 next month. They're going to be taping it the night after Victory Road in over there in New York. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's a big venue, and they should sell a lot of tickets to that, both Victory Road and Impact 1000. Interesting that they're doing Victory Road and Impact 1000 together, because Victory Road was actually the very first pay-per-view that TNA ever did. Not the NWA TNA, but when they broke off and went to the bigger type pay-per-view, Victory Road was that first one outside of that NWA TNA brand. So that's kind of cool. That's a little bit historic. It was originally going to be Bound for Glory, and they were going to do the Hulk Hogan, Jeff Jarrett thing. That ended up falling through, and then the following year in 2004, they brought in Victory Road, and that was kind of like their way to kind of jumpstart into doing bigger 3-hour pay-per-views. They didn't cost $9.99; they were full price pay-per-views. And so I don't think really many people are looking at that. I'm sure Garrett Kidney understands that, but I haven't really seen anybody else talk about it. I thought that was kind of cool. So Yeah, Team 3D at Impact 1000. I know that Awesome Kong is going to be there. The beautiful people who were absolutely humongous stars for TNA, and they were 100% the top draws, top for television ratings wise for a long time in that company. I think they should put those ladies into the Hall of Fame because they're very important to the success of those TNA on Spike years. And Awesome Kong too. Awesome Kong was great. She was fantastic, but the beautiful people showing up, I think, is a bigger deal, honestly. Despite the fact that I personally appreciate Awesome Kong more, I just know that the beautiful people were bigger stars. So that's super cool. Also, Kaito Kiyomiya and Kurt Angle, they will be returning to Border City Wrestling coming up here pretty soon for the 30th anniversary. Clearly, there's a tie in there. It's going to be in Windsor. I do know that there's supposed to be a surprise in Toronto at Emergence. I don't know that it'll be in front of everybody else, but a surprise in the live crowd. I think that would be kind of cool if they could get Kurt Angle for Impact 1000. If they're working out a deal, and Kurt Angle did say that he was negotiating with them at one point in time for that Santino role. I think it would be awesome to see Kurt back in Impact for Impact 1000. Everybody's saying Sting and RVD and Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy and AJ Styles. If I get Kurt Angle at Impact 1000, I'm happy. I'm a happy guy. I don't need to see anybody else other than that. Maybe Mike Tenay. Actually, Mike Tenay would be perfect. I'd love to see them bring in Mike Tenay. Some more news, and this is going to be geared towards the pay-per-view this Sunday, Multiverse United. Julia, who is from Stardom, she's the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. She's going to be defending the title against former Impact Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo, Giselle Shaw, and Stardom regular Momo Kogo. I'm sorry, everybody. I don't know who that woman is. I know who Julia is. I've watched several Julia matches, and she's tremendous. But I don't know who Momo is, so I apologize. Now, my buddy Scott Edwards said Momo was probably brought in to do the job. My prediction is it's Giselle Shaw, because I think that Impact would like to work with Stardom again, and part of how they make friends is by letting them beat their stars. And Giselle loses more often than she wins. She's also happens to be the girlfriend of Scott D'Amore, so she's more than willing to do business for the company and get her shoulders on the mat. She's totally cool with that. But that should be awesome. This is the first time that Impact and Stardom have teamed up, and I know that it's an Impact and New Japan show. New Japan owns Stardom. Stardom had shows that weekend, but they still decided to bring in Julia and Julia is one of their top stars. She's also going to be, I believe, at that All-Star Junior Festival that's happening the night before. This is going to be in the 2300 Arena coming up. If you're listening to this, it's actually going to be tonight. So New Japan has their All-Star Festival tonight, and with the debut of dipshit Enzo Amore. He's going to be in that show. But and then tomorrow night, also in the 2300 Arena, they're going to be doing Impact versus New Japan Multiverse United in the main event. And I'm going to go ahead and beat the drum for the folks that have been following me on Twitter since Josh Alexander got hurt. But the Impact World Champion, Alex Shelley, is defending his title against Hiroshi Tanahashi. If you think I've given up on the put the fucking belt on Tanahashi campaign, you were sadly mistaken. I don't care if Tanahashi has no knees. I don't care if he has no hips. I don't care if he has a back brace on. You put the fucking belt on Tanahashi. Just for historical reasons, right? They could flip it back later if they want to. It'd be great if they could bring him back, and have him do it at like Impact 1000. That would be cool. I don't know if he can make it happen. I don't know the schedule. I'm not going to do the research because I'm not actually a journalist, but it's like, why not? Why not put the title on him and then have him flip it back at a New Japan show, or have him flip it back at Victory Road, or like I said, Impact 1000. How cool would that be? You don't need Shelley to hold on to the title. We all understand where this is going. They want Shelley versus Josh Alexander at Bound for Glory. They can still get there by doing this. You can have him flip the title back to Shelley, or you can have him flip the title back to Josh. That would be cool. I think Josh defeating Tanahashi for the title is bigger than Josh defeating Alex Shelley for the title. And then if you want to have Alex Shelley go heel, then you can have him do that and turn on Josh, and then they can do the title the title match over at Bound for Glory, or flip it back to Alex Shelley, and then Josh, you know, does his rematch clause, or he actually never even lost the title. Josh just claims his title match at Bound for Glory against Shelley. You could do it that way, or you could do a 3-way at Bound for Glory. You know, more Tanahashi on TV, I think the better. Look, I know he's not moving around too well, and I really don't care. I happen to just really love this man. I just a big fan, and the fact that earlier this year I was able to see Tanahashi on Impact Television was awesome, because not that long ago, Impact and New Japan, they were not friends. And so when I started covering this company, that seemed like a fucking pipe dream. So the fact that I was able to see it got me excited. And now he's in a world title match. You got to put the title on him. He's one of the greatest that there's ever been. He's never been the Impact champion. I don't think he's ever actually held an American championship. You got to put it on him. You got to do it. It's the right move. It'll get people talking. It'll get people to tune into your television show. Do it. Lio Rush and Trey Miguel will also take on Hiromu Takahashi and Mike Bailey. That match should fucking rule. I don't know that Rush is ready to go. He did hurt his shoulder a few weeks ago, but he's still listed on the card. So I hope he's ready to go, or maybe they have him do something on the side, or maybe they bring in Zachary Wentz for that one. I don't know, but either way, I think the match is going to be tremendous. And then we also got Doki versus Sami Callihan. That should be fun. A lot of Impact fans are pretending to know who Doki is, and I find that to be cute. But Sammy always puts on a good performance. Zack Sabre Jr. and Shane Haste of TMDK, they will be taking on Moose and Eddie Edwards. You know, guys, I have been tweeting at Moose, at Eddie Edwards, at Scott D'Amore, at Impact Wrestling, saying that I think Moose and Eddie Edwards, that's the tag team. Not Moose and Brian Myers, and I know I got some against Brian Myers, and that's okay. But Moose and Eddie Edwards, that's the team right there. I think that that's your tag team champions. 2 former world heavyweight champions, 2 guys that can main event, 2 guys that are still big stars in this company. Eddie got a little heavy. That's okay. I think that you can do that. I think that that's your tag team champions right there. Put the belts on those guys, right? That would be awesome. But they're taking on TMDK. I see Shane Haste looking up at the lights there. We also got a 7-way scramble with Chris Sabin, Frankie Kazarian, Rich Swann, Kevin Knight versus Bushi versus Mao. Mao is from DDT. He is, I have learned recently, I've been educated by my buddy Ewan from the Voices of Wrestling Discord, that Mao is from DDT. He was Mike Bailey's tag team partner, and he's a big star there. So there you go. Versus El Desperado. And then I believe that Yo has been added to this match. So now it's an 8-way. It is an 8-way match. And so those matches are always pretty crazy. I get the feeling Tower of Doom. I get the feeling somebody's going to do a moonsault off of the top rope to the floor onto everybody while they're just standing there watching. I don't know that for a fact. I just know it's going to happen. And then next we got Bullet Club versus The World. We got David Finlay, Clark Connors, Alex Coughlin, Kenta, Chris Bay, and Ace Austin versus The World, comprised of Josh Alexander, PCO, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, El Phantasmo, and the DKC. I don't know what the point of that match, and I feel like that is a waste of Josh Alexander, but that's just where that's where New Japan sees Josh. So they don't really see him as kind of being a big deal. They've never really put him in big matches anytime he's ever been on an Impact show. I know earlier this year he was supposed to defend the title against Kushida, which would probably have been either main or co-main, but he got hurt, and then now look where he's being slotted. I'm sure the match is going to be good, but I don't like the main event, one half of the main event for your biggest pay-per-view of the year, being in a silly match like that. And then also they got Kenny King versus Kanemaru. They also did announce a New Japan versus New Japan match, but I'll be honest, I've already forgot who it was. But I did talk to somebody at Impact, and I was like, TJP is in the match. I was TJP and Francisco Akira versus Robbie Eagles and somebody else. I can't remember who Robbie Eagles' tag team partner, but I was like, I guess it still counts because TJP used to be an Impact, and he said, well, also Robbie Eagles worked the Australian tour. So I I guess you got me on that one, brother. So um, also coming up soon, Impact is heading to England. I'm gonna get those dates. Just stand by. It did not make it to my notes here. So Impact in the UK, Impact Wrestling in the UK, and okay. So I'm pulling it up right now, but the Impact Wrestling announces the multi-city UK invasion tour in October of 2023. So Thursday, October 26th in Glasgow, Scotland. Friday, October 27th in Newcastle, England. And then Saturday in Coventry. They did so well in Coventry that they added another show on Sunday. So they're actually going to do 4 shows, 4 nights, 4 shows. The Coventry one sold so well, they added a second one. And I did read that the one in Newcastle was actually they're looking at having over 1,500 people there. So you're looking at Slammiversary numbers for the show in Newcastle. So again, I think the theme of this episode of Brace for Impact has been that they have just done such a great job of marketing, and who deserves a lot of credit for that. It's Lou D'Angeli. Like, since they have added him as their head honcho for marketing and promoting these events, they have done just such a great job. And big ups to him. And I know Gary, not Gary, what's the guy that does Wrestle Carnival? Somebody in the chat could probably remind me, but there's a guy that does the Wrestle Carnival, and he is actually helping to promote that. So he obviously did a really great job of promoting those events over there. And then of course you got Simon that works for the Impact UK PR team. So I just want to do a quick rundown of the Impact Wrestling TV show, then we'll sign off. I thought that the episode this past week was really, really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The opening match is Gianna Perrazzo. She defeated Kylan King. Um, uh, uh, Obviously a good match. I really, really enjoyed that one. Killer Kelly defeated Jessica and Savannah Evans. Not a good match. They did a lot of comedy. I didn't laugh. But Killer Kelly got the victory. They got the big match coming up at Emergence, but I'll break down the Emergence card next week. Dirty Dango and Alpha Bravo cut a promo on Jake Something where Dango said that Something was starving for money for doing outlaw mud shows. Dango then made fun of Jake Something's Tinder profile. Guys, the last time you heard me, I shit all over Dango because he was coming in and I felt like he was resting on his laurels. He was just coming in as the artist formerly known as Fandango. But I gotta say, Dango has won me over. Much like the Brochachos, I am a fan. So Dango, kudos to you. I like what you're doing here. I don't really care to see Jake Something in a feud with Dango, but if it gets Jake over, I'm excited for it. The next match was Moose versus Kevin Knight. Now, if you're listening to this, I want you to go to Impact's YouTube and watch this match. If you did not get a chance to watch the whole show, if you watch nothing else, watch this match. This was tremendous. This was Moose being a smarmy, slimy, overgrown asshole heel to a young wrestler in Kevin Knight who was working from underneath and working his way up. There's a moment in the match. There's a couple of moments that made me jump out of my seat. There's one where, Moose, tossed him to the outside and Kevin Knight hit his head on the ramp. That was pretty gnarly. But at one point, Moose was going to attack Kevin Knight, and Kevin Knight hit him with the goddamnedest drop kick you've ever seen in your life. Just good stuff. This Kevin Knight kid, he's going to be a star. I think everybody should kind of circle like this match in his career as one of those matches you can go back on where, like, if you're a scout, if you're like a talent scout, like, what's this kid made of? You circle this match and you watch it. This is the one that you show people, like, hey, this was the moment where we really felt like Kevin Knight could work a main event style with a top star. Him and Moose tore down the house. The Chicago crowd was going crazy for them. I know there wasn't that many people there, but the people that were there were fucking on fire for this match. And I was on fire just watching it at home. And I actually heard from Andre Carter, who's a subscriber to this, my buddy Andre. He was there. He told me about it. And then sometimes when people like tell you about it, you're like, okay, it can't be that good. And then I heard like somebody from Impact. I'm in a group chat with somebody from Impact, and they were like, guys, I'm telling you right now, you need to make sure that you watch this match tonight. The match hadn't even been announced on TV because they were going to do the skit backstage. So I'd found out earlier in the afternoon. And he's like, no, you guys really need to watch it. And I was like, okay, well, he works for Impact. Of course he's going to say that. And then I watched the match and I was like, God damn, Andre and the Impact guy were not fucking lying. It was actually better than what they had said. Like, I really, really enjoyed this match. I think it was one of the best Impact matches of the year, honestly. It was fantastic. I loved it. Next, we go to the Rascals. They're interviewed backstage, but they're interrupted by Ace Austin and Chris Bay, who accuse them of paying off the good hands. They probably paid off the good hands in PBR to attack them last week. Then Santino Marella got in the way and made a match pitting Ace Austin and Chris Bay against the good hands next week. My friend Gerard is actually almost banned from the chat, from the BFI chat, because he continues to talk about the good hands. He talks about them like they're a good team. I don't know what's going on with that Gerard guy. He's crazy. Eric Young defeated Big Con. Diener and Khan attacked Young with a chair after the match. This was cool. Joe Hendry and Yuya Uemura, they were backstage trying to prepare to become a full-time tag team in a music video sung by Hendry. I typically would not like to see a rising New Japan star treated like this, but Yuya Uemura has great comedic timing. He does really good with this stuff with Joe Hendry. I think they might get him over with this. I don't know. I'm interested to see where this goes, and I'm interested to see this tag team. We'll see. I'm not sure about it, but I did enjoy this music video. And then this is where it gets really heavy. Tom Hannafin hosted the second part of a sit-down interview with Crazy Steve. Crazy Steve discusses past suffering domestic abuse, the passing of his mother who had committed suicide, and having to play a clown in the early days of Impact. This was just an emotional roller coaster. It's like 4 or 5 minutes. If you're not for the faint of heart and you don't mind hearing tough stories like that, I would strongly suggest you guys go check that out. I don't know where they go with Crazy Steve on this. They did something similar with Jonathan Gresham, and they never really capitalized on it. He wasn't even on the show this week. I don't know what they're doing, but I think what they're doing with Steve here is so far so good, but are they going to capitalize on it? I just don't know, but he's got a lot of people talking. So good for Steve, man. Good for Tom Hannafin too. He did a great job. And then Chris Sabin cut a promo out calling out Leo Rush. But Samurai Del Sol confronted him and told him that he wanted a shot at Rush first because Leo Rush had attacked him the previous week. And then the two agreed to a match next week. And then we go to a no disqualification match. Bully Ray defeated Black Taurus. Actually, it was a pretty good match, but I wanted my guy Taurus to win. Look, Impact, when it comes to luchadors, they suck. They actually brought in Samurai Del Sol, and they have Laredo Kid and Black Taurus. And one by one, these guys just keep getting beat. And they specifically wanted to bring all these guys in for Chicago because Chicago's hot for lucha, but they just brought them in so they could beat them. That's like WCW cruiserweight shit. Like, come on. Disgusting. You guys are pitiful, you sons of bitches. But Bully Ray defeated him, and then PCO after the match, the lights go out. You hear the electricity go off, and then PCO came in to attack Bully Ray. But Ray put PCO through a table, but PCO rose back up, and Ray ran out of the building for the second week in a row. So it should be leading to a match at Emergence. Eddie Edwards was then interviewed backstage where he said that he wanted to end things with Frankie Kazarian. Kazarian confronted Edwards before Kazarian challenged Edwards to a match at Killer Kowalski's wrestling school, which Edwards accepted. So they're going to probably do some type of cinematic deal, maybe a Lion's Den type match, the way they did Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock back at Fully Loaded 1998. I was in the crowd for that. They brought out these big TVs because they didn't have the big screen at the time. So they just had the big TVs and they put the big TVs around the ring so that way us and the audience could actually watch it. It was pretty cool. And then the Impact Tag Team Championship #1 contenders tournament finals, the Rascals defeated Sami Callihan and Rich Swann in the main event, and I really liked this match too. I thought it was great. Callihan and Rich Swann, they're just kind of a thrown together tag team. They do have some history, but I thought they did a great job being the baby faces to the Rascals, and then the Rascals cheated to win with the green spray again. And I thought it was a great match, and it was a great way to end the show. A really strong offering from Impact. So if you had kind of given up on Impact earlier in the year, possibly because of the stuff that JD and I were saying, I would say give it another shot. They seem to have something going right now. Like the tag team division looks really good. Josh Alexander is back. I know that if you don't like Bully Ray, he is a fixture on the show, but he hasn't been that bad. He really hasn't. So, and I dig the stuff that he's doing with PCO. So I would say that if you haven't listened to it or if you haven't watched the show in a while, give it another shot. Check out Multiverse United this Sunday. I will be doing a recap of that show. I just don't know when, and I don't think it's going to be YouTube. It'll just be Patreon exclusive, where I'll just kind of run down the matches and give you my thoughts. And then if any news breaks, I'll talk about it on that. I'll be right back here next week. Maybe Friday night, probably early Saturday morning with another Brace for Impact. These shows typically aren't going to be on YouTube, the full thing. I will clip them for YouTube, but for the most part, it's just going to be Patreon. It's just for the Patreon audience. So thank you. But if you're watching on YouTube, please comment, like, and subscribe and share. Be a part of the conversation and tell us what you think, man. All right, guys, until next week, mahalo.